So, but this gets
always
back
have
to the point is, as we're mitigating, we're also protecting communities nearby.
Yes, we are.
This
is a wood frame building that is 4 stories high.
Wow.
That has been out of production. When the wind blows, sometimes the glass flies out of the windows. You know, we've already completed a phase 1 on this building. They haven't found a lot. They say, well, you know, you have to know the difference between a glove factory and a tannery.
Yes.
A tannery is a polluted place. A glove factory is sewing gloves, making gloves out of finished leather.
Right.
This was always a glove factory.
Right.
So we always felt that there wasn't a lot of pollution here. They said, well, there's some rumor that there might have been tanning going on here. And there's an oil tank in the ground. So we think that the phase 2 would not turn up a whole lot, and the remediation might be inexpensive.
Right.
But this would make an enormous impact on the neighborhood.
So I guess from my perspective, and I'm just going back to my roots as a local official and community developer, is we see a lot of potential here, and we just got to make sure that we have all the tools we need to clean up the sites and put them back into productive use. So there's a lot of work to be done here. But you have a lot of energy in this community, and your leadership seems very dedicated.
I'll echo the statements that Administrator Lopez mentioned. Congresswoman is very excited about the potential of the sites that we've seen. There's a lot of work to be done, but with the leadership of Mr. Lopez and the local elected officials, the Congresswoman thinks it's definitely doable, and we're looking forward to continuing the work.
Through the first half of the 20th century, we had incredible prosperity here in the leather industry and the glove manufacturing industry, both of those industries. And you know, we owe a lot to those industries right now, because, you know, if it weren't for them, we wouldn't have a city here. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't have this gorgeous architecture in our downtown, this magnificent public library, the great buildings that we have, a general hospital right in our city. We wouldn't have any of that. But when that industry left, it left its scars with us. And over time, over the last 50, 60 years, we've been struggling against those scars. So our idea over the next several years is to build a new city. And the dream is to build a new Gloversville, a post-industrial Gloversville, a community that has an extremely high quality of life. And this gives us the pathway to be able to do that.
Participating in the Brownfields program, been able to track $28 billion in cleanup. We've estimated about 150,000 jobs in construction and development. And also we have a workforce training program. So through EPA we have an environmental workforce and job training program which fills the jobs from people living locally. And we just had this conversation in the Gowanus in Brooklyn. These people that we bring in and train, give them work skills that they can use for, again, working environmental cleanup or in other pursuits. So we've had more than 6,600 people who've been trained in the environmental field. 4,000 of these people have found full-time employment as a result of that training. So that's just a side benefit to our engagement here. And these jobs are good. They average good paying wages. So these are the opportunities that come with the Brownfields grant. So for Gloversville, we're happy to announce that they're receiving $300,000. And what I said to the mayor and supervisor and colleagues is that we want to hear more from Gloversville. If you have more need, we want to hear more from you. And we understand this is moving forward on an important journey for the community. So these funds are going to be used to develop an inventory of sites for assessment and to conduct 10 initial phase 1 site assessments, which include gathering information from a historical perspective, understanding the historical engagement, the levels of contamination, the nature of contamination, conducting interviews and site reconnaissance, and to recognize the environmental conditions and target the areas of concern. So our first phase will be investigatory, and with all of our engagement, And I'm just saying this to our, we met just briefly, just before we came in, just for the public to understand, this process is very comprehensive. And it's not an overnight, it's not like flipping a light switch. This doesn't mean that a site's instantly clean. We have to begin by understanding what was the nature of the contamination, how did it occur, to what extent did it occur, and then we have to determine how do we clean it up. What's the best method for arresting the contamination and moving forward. So ultimately, we had small rural communities, so those, we had under 100,000 and we had under 10,000. So our goal is to make sure that resources are getting across broadly. And again, as your grant writers will tell you, often smaller rural communities are left out simply because they can't even get a grant application, can't even get an oar in the water. So to the extent that we were happy to see the application come in, we understand the importance of economic development. We want to spread the resources out across the state and region and nationally. So Gloversville was a great candidate for that.
So this is so close to that.
Right.
If this were, you can imagine that if this were eliminated, it would change the entire area. And we may be able to remediate it without a whole lot of.
So the premise would be to take the building down,
Yes.
and then what would your vision be for a site like this?
Well,
Housing?
yes, the idea would be to convert it either to recreational use or housing.
Yes, depending on what you find.
Or a combination of both,
Sure,
perhaps.
that makes sense.
A fire, not this past winter, but the winter before, burned all that. So you see that the charred remains of that. It's along the creek, so the LWRP comes into play, and this possibly can be located inside a BOA, a BOA. So we're doing that. But it is right across from Kingsborough Elementary School. So those properties that, as I mentioned, is in limbo. The corporation that owned this property is no longer operational, probably no longer in existence. The taxes have not been paid. The county doesn't want to take title to it in tax foreclosure because, there's who knows what's there.
Right.
But as you can see, this is all residential up here around the school, which is positive. These people are waiting for school to get out. It should, pretty soon.
Understood, yep.
All of this is residential, and when you go up to that corner, it's very nice houses on both sides, and this is in a place that is preventing this whole area from being invested.
Understood.
And so the idea would be that this could be converted to what we thought originally was recreational use because of the school. It could be a public park, or it could be a combination of residential and recreational.
And we have the stream nearby too, do we?
That's the bridge right there.
Right.
That's the creek.
That's the creek that goes across. Now this
So
is
pronounce the creek for me again.
Cayadetta.
Cayadetta. Got
Cayadetta
it.
Creek.
Got it.
And so this is part of the LWRP. So when we start that LWRP process, we'll be visioning the uses for these properties
Understood.
along the creek. The person who owns this area is just storing things on it, but it was a former tannery. It says Lavor's.
I see that.
Yeah.
They took about 6 foot off that chimney.
Yeah. So I want you to just take a look at the street. Now look at this street. This is Woodside Avenue. So these houses are not deteriorated.
No.
These people are investing in houses, and if you look over on this side, you can see that it's home for a lot of people. And if this were, and not only that, but there are other on the just on the outskirts of this area, there are businesses, successful businesses that have been developed. You'll see that on West Fulton Street when we go by. And then this other area here, the buildings to the north, and it goes along 2nd Street, which goes this way, have been purchased by somebody who's doing indoor storage. So they've fixed up all the buildings, and they're actually using it as a business. Well, this was a really good opportunity because we got to all go to look at some of these brownfield sites, to look at some of these former industrial sites, to see firsthand what the impact of these dilapidated sites is on the neighborhoods and people living in those neighborhoods. And the thing that we noticed, and the thing that I wanted to point out, was that people are still investing in their properties, that people are still planting flowers, they're keeping their lawns mowed, even though the sites that they're across the street from them, next door to them, have been dilapidated and deteriorated. And I consider these people to be our heroes, because they are positive in their whole outlook on the community. When we're going to eliminate some of those sites eventually. It's not going to be overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day, but we're going to get there. We're now in the game, and when you're in the game, you have a direct line to the agencies that really matter. So we'll be reaching out really soon to the community for their input.